Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And specifically, I'd like to focus on a great set which has been designated comprehensively at spine number 1186. And it's this set, which is the RANOWN Westerns, 5 films directed by Budd Boetticher and starring Randolph Scott. And we have been going through each of these films, 5 of the films, or so far, and that brings us actually to the 5th of such films today, if that's okay. And this film is described as being from the year 1960, and it is directed by Budd Boetticher. And the name of this film is Comanche Station. This is the work which is described as being from the year 1960, and it is from the producer and director Budd Boetticher, and it is from the director of photography Charles Laughton Jr., and written by Burt Kennedy. And among its great cast, we have people like Randolph Scott and Nancy Gates and Claude Akins and others. This is Randolph Scott's character Jefferson Cody. And Claude Akins' character, Ben Lane. Oh, it's wonderful. This is the film which is Comanche Station. So, Comanche Station, it is a very significant film in the context of the RANOWN Westerns. One of the reasons for which is, for example, that it constitutes the last collaboration or the last partnership or the last film in this partnership between Boetticher and Randolph Scott. So, in that sense, it is a very important and significant film, and it is also significant in the way it also establishes or reestablishes or reaffirms a lot of what we've seen within the context of the RANOWN Western cycle. And we can get a sense of this when we think about the plot or story structure of Comanche Station. And so we have, again, emerging from the landscape, the rugged mythological landscape of the American West. We have Randolph Scott's character, Jefferson Cody, who is maybe on some kind of mission or other, again, part of the mystique and mystery, and again, the psychological complexity of films like Comanche Station and other films in the RANOWN Western cycle is the almost the brooding loner aspect of our heroes portrayed by Scott, and the hidden agendas that they may or may not have. And so this is not apparent from the outset. And in fact, when you watch the film, those details may or may not emerge as we go forward with this quest or this journey of him and the other characters that we meet. Again, that's part of the fun and appeal and suspense of the film. You have to figure out what the surprises this film has in store for you if you haven't seen this film already. So it's really worth watching. It's really captivating. But again, we have this air of mystery, but also this air of rugged loner type heroism. I think Randolph Scott has shown time and time again that he can do so well, and his character, Jefferson Cody, is no exception to that. And we see him engaged almost immediately with a type of exchange with sort of the Comanche group that he meets, and this forms one of the key aspects of this in terms of an exchange of goods in return for a woman that they've had in their custody, and this is the Nancy Gates character. And we see, or we get to see, exactly why it is that Jefferson Cody has in fact rescued her from being being captured in this way, and all the sort of psychological complexity and the consequences of this, as acknowledged by the characters within the space, within the environment of the film itself. And so it already emerges this idea of being in captivity, this the sense of in this frontier environment where you have a lot of dangers as well as a lot of hopes and optimism. So there's a lot of risk, and that risk can have quite dire consequences that have life and death stakes, and it puts to the test a lot of the relationships too. Part of the mystery and part of the journey of this film is exactly the background of the Nancy Gates character in this context, and this is revealed as the relationship slowly develops between Randall Scott's character and Nancy Gates' character, and we get a sense of who they are and how they react to each other and how they maybe feel repellent against each other, but maybe there is a bond or connection between them that emerges slowly as the film progresses. And that also emerges too in terms of what the hidden agendas may or may not be of the Randolph Scott character and his background, and what the hidden agenda may or may not be in terms of the Nancy Gates character and her background. And also, those aren't the only characters in this mix in terms of this, say, rescue from captivity storyline. In the context of a type of bounty hunter relationship, we also throw into this group of, say, Claude Akins and company, and they form the anti-hero dynamic, which is also very much part and parcel of the RANOWN Western cycle, namely the characters that form the tense, maybe antagonistic relationship with our primary protagonist, the Randolph Scott character, and they may have certain agendas that are coinciding with each other, or they might clash with each other, and that has to do very centrally with the Nancy character and how and what her presence means to them versus what her presence means to him, and what indeed how that affects her and her say psychological profile and positioning within this film, because her character is so important in terms of not just a way in which people around her react and as part of their plots, but also how her maybe emotional journey is affected by, again, the externalities, but also how these characters interact with her, because there's these almost intimate portrayals of the relationships, both between her and Claude Akins' character and also her and Randolph Scott's character, that really forms this interesting mix of, say, tense rivalries on the one hand, but also this almost uneasy mix of maybe a type of an uneasy alliance on the other, because we also have thrown into these situations here the threats of outward or external attacks, which also gives gives rise to a lot of the action set pieces that are part of the thrills of Comanche Station. And we go from from place to place to place, and as we go from place to place to place, we see various pasts and details reemerge, various, say, dark and murky details of people's past also emerge that might also form or threaten the uneasy alliances that we've seen set up throughout the film. Again, will they be broken completely or not? We'll have to wait and see till the very end to find out. And will our expectations of a type of showdown or a series of showdowns indeed be fulfilled, or will the film take us in a completely different direction, or will it take us in one direction and then twist into another direction only to come back with certain expectations or subversions or twists and turns along the way? And perhaps this is a film that twists and turns in a way that gives us what we expect, but then does it in a way that is also something we don't expect. So in that type of I'm trying to be as vague as possible here, because again, much like many of the other RANOWN Westerns, this film, Comanche Station, has a way about it in terms of presenting action-adventure thrills and really exciting set pieces that make for some really fast-paced, economically arranged, wonderfully packed compact running time. It is really well paced. It just has a great pace to it, and it also gives us time to breathe and learn about the characters, while giving us this high intense action set pieces. And also, it is a film that, as I say, maybe traverses a type of murky area of maybe moral ambiguity, and betrayals and lusts and sexual energy, and also a type of this unease, or maybe a gritty sense of distrust that might be linked to that sexual energy, that's also linked to sort of emotional arcs of the characters. And that's part of the landscape of Budd Boetticher and company. And it's shown and shining through with a great exquisite style and pacing in this film, Comanche Station. This is, again, where we're finding ourselves reaching the end of the cycle. And so in many ways it does have a sense of finality about it. But even with that sense of finality, we do get this wonderful reminder of the themes and concerns that have linked throughout the RANOWN Western cycle. And Comanche Station, I think, embodies those themes and concerns so brilliantly. Again, the murky area between heroes and villains, the way that gender roles and sex and sex-related roles and positioning and attitudes are also on display, and also the way in which that really shows a type of, say, character-driven, say, philosophy as represented in these films, a la the characterizations of the performances by Randolph Scott and others, as well as the way in which, say, the psychological complexity is linked to the visual cues of the environment. And that's augmented too by the great photography and the positioning and the framing and the music design and choices, etc. So this is another great example of the RANOWN Western cycle. It comes at the very end, so it's the fifth of these 5 films as part of this set, but it's in many ways a type of fitting conclusion. And in also many ways a great echo of what we've seen thus far in this series of films, the RANOWN Westerns. This is the film from 1960, which is Comanche Station. The Criterion Collection has released this box set, the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo set, the RANOWN Westerns, 5 films directed by Budd Boetticher, starring Randolph Scott. And of those 5 films, the 5th film is Comanche Station from 1960, and it is based on the presentation of the masters, notes about which are included on the latter pages of this great staple booklet. And again, I quote with respect to Comanche Station. Comanche Station is presented in its original aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1. It was restored in 4K by Sony Pictures Entertainment. Scanning, initial color correction, and digital restoration were completed by Cineric from the 35mm original camera negative. SDR color was completed by Danny DeVincent at Cineric. HDR color grading was completed by Sherry Eisenberg at Warner Brothers Motion Picture Imaging. The monaural audio restoration and conform were conducted at Deluxe from the 35mm original DME magnetic tracks. The restoration was supervised by Grover Crisp for Sony Pictures Entertainment. So, much like the other films in this set, overall, I must say I'm very impressed with this set and the way that the Criterion Collection has relied on these restorations for the basis of these discs here, and the 4K UHD discs and the Blu-ray discs. And I must say that, again, Comanche Station is another exemplary example of the richness of the quality of the 4K restorations here. I'm really, really happy with this. Again, while there might have been some films where it may have been almost, how should I put it, there might have been 1 or 2 areas where there may have been spots or patches of a type of digitized quality about it. I get none of that feeling when I watch Comanche Station. I feel like the grain and the specks, I mean, they feel part of the environment itself, as a matter of fact. They feel like the dust in the air. And I think that's really important. Again, so many things happen. You get a sense of the sweat and the the dirt and the grime. That's really important here, and the water and things, and the slime and the trees, because that gives us a sense of the urgency and the real murky quality of this of the what we're traversing here in terms of the moral compass, or the amoral compass, as the case may be. So that's really wonderful, and I felt my eyes bedazzled, in a manner of speaking, and also my ears as well. I was so taken with this. I'm very happy with this. I have had such I've had, as I mentioned before, I've been so fortunate to be able to see these films in the context of, say, past non-Criterion releases. You know, the great team over at Indicator, for example. It's a great set. And but in terms of the quality of these presentations for the Criterion release, I am really thrilled with this. So I think Comanche Station is another great example of this. It looks and sounds absolutely brilliant. And then when it comes time to what else is included with respect to Comanche Station, once again, we will talk in a separate video about the supplement-specific disc that's included as part of this great set. It's a great disc, so let's talk about those in a separate video discussion. But if we're talking about what's included with Comanche Station, the first place we can go is the commentary track, which is included. So this includes a 2008 commentary track, so it's carrying over from a previously made commentary track, but that is still great. It's great that Criterion was able to have this carried over, included here, because it is from Taylor Hackford. Taylor Hackford has appeared in other places in the catalog of Budd Boetticher Films supplements. And some of those supplements have also been carried over into other parts of this Criterion release. So that's great. Some of the intros in some of the other films, for instance, feature Taylor Hackford. And here we have the commentary from Taylor Hackford. And so this is another great one. It's so great to see this film with the commentary track again. Taylor Hackford knows Budd Boetticher's films just through it all. It's fantastic. The depth of the knowledge of Taylor Hackford here, and he speaks about how this is the last of the RANOWN westerns, the use of the framing and the widescreen technique, also Charles Laughton Jr., and how this is a very great example of Budd Boetticher's visual storytelling. And also too, there are many scenes, like in the other films too, about the rugged aspect of the horse riding nature of this, and how this is maybe linked to Budd Boetticher's own personal life in terms of his own experience with respect to horse riding. And then Taylor Hackford speaks here about many other aspects, like the performances by Claude Akins, and also Randolph Scott, of course, but also some of the dialogue. There are really brilliant moments of dialogue, and it's so wonderful not just to hear those brilliant moments of dialogue, but also to get Taylor Hackford's just wonderful admiration for these bits of dialogue here. And he really sings the praises of Burt Kennedy, really does, and sort of really makes the case for why Burt Kennedy should be regarded as one of the greats in terms of filmmaking and then writing, and Comanche Station's dialogue being a wonderful example of this. And there are some lines that he quotes as we're watching the film that are just like gold, absolute gold. So, and also there's an interesting image involving a tree, which is maybe relevant to a previous film, Ride Lonesome. So, which also was mentioned a little bit in the Ride Lonesome commentary track, because there's an interesting overlap between the two commentary tracks. But in any event, yes, we have this great commentary track from 2008, again carried over. It's wonderful that it's included here as part of this Criterion Collection release. So please watch the film if you can with the commentary track. Once again, you can watch the film with the commentary track on the 4K UHD disc, which is what I have in the machine, which is 4K UHD disc number 3, or you can watch the film on the Blu-ray disc, and then on the Blu-ray disc, when you watch the film there, you can also watch it with the commentary track on. So on either disc, you have the option of the commentary track, which is great. And so now let us turn our attention to the supplements. And so when we talk about the other supplements included or linked to, specifically linked to Comanche Station, we have the supplements which can be found with the Blu-ray. Once again, the film can be found on the 4K UHD disc and the Blu-ray disc. And we also have, as mentioned before, the commentary track to Comanche Station, which also can be heard on the film soundtrack if you're going to watch it on the 4K UHD disc or the Blu-ray disc. So the commentary track can be found on either disc. But when we're talking about the other supplements, this is where you're going to have to go to the Blu-ray disc. The supplements won't be found on the 4K UHD disc, but rather on the Blu-ray disc. So I have the Blu-ray disc here. It's Blu-ray disc number 2. And such Blu-ray disc number 2 has the films Ride Lonesome and Comanche Station. And I've already set it to Comanche Station, and I've already set it to the supplements submenu. And as you can see, we have 2 supplements. The first of which is the Super 8 version. And this is described as follows. This 20-minute version of Budd Boetticher's Comanche Station, produced by Columbia Pictures in 1973, was sold on Super 8 prints for home and school use. So as the description remarks, it's about 20 minutes or so. And it is the so-called Super 8 version. What this is a type of, say, rearranged or represented Super 8 version of this in a 20-minute version. So you can see what the sort of the quality of the presentation is, at least especially when compared to the quality of the presentation that we find courtesy of this released by the Criterion Collection. But that, I don't think, takes anything away from the Super 8 version. It has a lovely charm and a lovely presentation quality to it. There's also a nice way that the narration is used, etc. So it's a nice, interesting alternative way of experiencing the story of Comanche Station. And also, again, part of the landscape of, say, home and school use in the early 1970s. So it's also a very interesting example of how this film was essentially being consumed for home audiences back in the early 1970s. So it's a fascinating example of this. It's a great reminder of how this film was being watched. It's sort of the equivalent today of how we watch these Criterion releases. Well, we have the Super 8 version back here, so it's a great example of this. So I'm glad this is included. I really wish that these versions were available, could be made included as part of the supplements for as many of the Criterion releases as possible. It's a really fascinating way and a really great way of re-experiencing the film, and it's an interesting way of re-experiencing the film. It has a wonderful sense of charm and also its own sense of economy. So it's kind of its own art form too, how to create these Super 8 versions. So anyway, that's the first of such supplements. It's very fascinating to watch. So please check that out if you can. It's approximately 20 minutes. And then we have the trailer, which is rounding out the supplements here linked to Comanche Station. It's a great trailer, so please check that out too if you can. So that concludes the supplements that can be found linked with Comanche Station. Once again, there will be a supplements-specific disc, and we will talk about that in a future video with regard to the RANOWN Westerns. But for now, those are the supplements. And then so now let us turn our attention to the booklet. Once again, I will talk about the great staple booklet and also aspects of the box set and the packaging and the cover art design, etc. I'll talk about this in a separate video. But and there's also the comprehensive writings here. It's a great booklet. One of the pages, or two of the pages, pages 12 and 13, I should say, are Comanche Station specific. So if you see here, we have the great use of this dark blue tone, which is lovely, which is a nice contrast to the lighter blue tones here of the Blu-ray menu, for example. And then we have on this side a plot synopsis write-up regarding Comanche Station, along with some details about the year, 1960, running time, aspect ratio 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, etc. And we have a picture, and then following that we have the casting credits information. So then we have the comprehensive essay, which we will again talk about in a future video. So Comanche Station, another very fascinating, complex film, and again it's a film that it has twists and turns. It goes in places that you may expect or may be expecting the unexpected, but then are unexpected by the fact it goes into expected ways and then back again, and you turn that on its head, and you're in for this sort of rip-roaring ride indeed that is, again, filled with the great complexity that we have come to expect, the greatness of these films by Budd Boetticher and company, along with a real captivating story that is populated by these great characters portrayed with such accessibility by these wonderful performers, again, under the guiding hand of the director Budd Boetticher. This is the film Comanche Station. So again, it's part of this great cycle, the RANOWN Westerns. So please check it out if you can as part of this great set. So my dear friends, that's it for now. And so we'll have one more video on the RANOWN Westerns set, as I mentioned before, about the supplements specific disc, and also type of closing remarks and other things of the sort. But yes, the RANOWN Westerns, part of this cycle, Comanche Station, being part of this. This is really, again, complex work, and it's part of this exciting cycle. Again, courtesy of the Criterion Collection this year, 2023. The RANOWN Westerns, 5 films directed by Budd Boetticher, starring Randolph Scott. Please check it out if you can. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including Comanche Station, including the RANOWN Western cycle of films, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.